started with the prequel Assassin's Blade, which came out third, I think.
This is a book everybody's like, you should either read it third or you should read it first. Like,
I read it first, and that's the best way to do it because then you get like all the information. I feel like if I started reading Third of Glass without reading this, I would have been mega confused the first two books.
Well, I can say that I read Third of Glass without reading it, and I understood everything. But it's good to have a background. Good to have background knowledge on it.
Okay, and this was my first book of 2024.
This is one of the first ones I read too, and I rated it 5 stars, and I really liked it because I reread the series because I never finished it. And so I read this one because I never read this one. I just went through all of them and never even read this one. But it was really good, and I loved it.
I cried, so. Second book I read was Throne of Glass, which was originally the first book that she came out with. She wrote this when she was, what, 16?
Yeah, 17.
Insane, because
18.
It's so good.
Yeah.
I think I gave this one 4 stars.
That's probably
It's a pretty good entrance one. You meet all the characters, Kale and Dorian. I love both of those people, and I don't stand for the Kale hate. What was your next book?
I skipped to Air of Fire because I did not want to reread Throne of Glass and Crown of Midnight.
She don't like Kale.
Because I knew everything that happened already, and I didn't feel like I needed a revamping. And also, this is my favorite one, so I reread this one and gave it 5 stars. I love this book so much.
I read Crown of Midnight third, and I think this one was one of my favorites. I gave this one a 5 stars too.
Yeah, I remember that one's pretty good too.
Then I read Air of Fire. This one's pretty good. It's not my favorite though, because all she does is fight with Rowan the whole time.
Okay, we're not talking. No.
She does. This one's better.
You can like Kale, and I can like Air of Fire, okay?
Okay, I'm just saying more stuff happens. This one's like a filler.
Not okay. You gotta.
This one's so good.
Slaps.
Because I love when people are separated from their friends and they come together and they meet again. And this happened with Rowan and Selena. And then, Adian. She reunited with Adian. And next book is Empire of Storms. Pretty good.
A banger was a banger.
Banger. A lot going on.
Yeah, but a lot of different perspectives.
Very much a lot. For this one, I gave it 4 stars. I think just because there was a lot of point of views and there were only a couple of them I was actually interested in.
Yeah, I agree.
So there were some parts that were really dull for me, and I was like, okay, next.
But the ending?
Elite and Lorcan in this book.
Yeah, that's what I was.
That's what I was like.
That's what I wanted to read about, and then it kept going back there.
Yeah, their POVs were 5 minutes, and nothing happened in the 5 minutes.
Yes. Okay.
And then Tower of Dawn. I really like this book because I really like Kale, and I felt really bad for him when his back got blown up, and I just feel like everyone hated him, especially my sister. She was like, "You're gonna hate him. You're gonna hate him," and I never hated him.
Apparently, I finished the first book. I finished The 7-Year Slip on January 1st of this year, and I rated it 3 stars. I didn't like it, so that's all I have to say about it.
The main male character did not actually like the main girl character. But maybe that was just, but yeah,
Next book I read was Love Theoretically. I don't remember what happened in this book. I gave it 4 stars.
That book was good.
And I think it was good, but...
You don't remember what happened?
No, I remember reading it on the way to a beach volleyball tournament, but I don't remember what happened.
Then I read Ruthless Vows, which is the second book, and Divine Rivals was good. I didn't like this book. I felt like it just kept dragging on, and I just didn't really care at that point. So that sucks. I rated it 4 stars.
I read Love and Other Words. This book was pretty much trash. I had already read the summer... I had already read Every Summer After, and a lot of people say she, the author of Every Summer After, which is Carly Fortune, basically took the idea from this book. But I just think it was way worse in this book than it was in the other one.
Oh, shots fired.
I think it was just because I had gone from reading like 7 really high intense fantasy books, and they were like so intriguing and the plot was so good, and then I went to reading this YA book about these 2 little kids who are in love, and I was like, this is dumb. But I don't really know if I actually didn't like it or if it was just, I don't know. I kind of just felt like I was reading every summer after all over again.
Next book I read was Prisoner's Throne. This one was still good, but I just felt like they weren't my cup of tea, and Rin is just a snowman, and then she turned into like a butterfly at the end. It was just very interesting, but I just cared about Jude and Carden. I did not really care about them.
Don't tell me what happened. I haven't read that. I have 2 that aren't up here, so I'm just gonna go ahead and like tell you what they are. The next book I read was Daisy Jones and the Six. Thank you, Shy, for lending that book to me. It was a magical experience. I've never read a book that was written that way, like a script almost, but it was really cool, and I really enjoyed the book. I really like Taylor Jenkins Reid books. The next book that I read, Parker recommended to me on the beach volleyball team. I read the first book of the Chestnut Springs series, Flawless, and I'm not gonna lie, I did not like it. I just don't think that those types of books, just strictly like romance, are for me. And so yeah, I rated that 3 stars. I mean, it was interesting. I never read a book like that. So like the rodeo, the bull rider, I don't remember. So that was cool. But like other than that, I was just like, meh. I reread Better Than the Movies. It's still 5 stars because I'm not gonna re-rate a book after I.
They were trying to mess me, and I'm not taking it anymore.
And now I read it and I'm just like, okay. The main character was kind of cringy, but it was very fast paced and I read it fast, so. What are you mouthing over there? Anyway, so yeah.
So next I read How the King of, how do you say
Elfhame.
This? Okay. Elfhame Learned to Hate Stories. And I rated it 5 stars because guess who it was about? Jude and Carden, and I love them. And that's all I have to say.
Yeah. Next book I read. Oh, this book was so good. Both of the Taylor Jenkins Reid books that I've read are just so unique, and I love her style of writing. It's just, I just read them so fast. And the
Catch, guys!
Yes.
it reminded me
Our
of
fans.
myself playing volleyball, and just, it's very sports related. So just the mindset of an athlete and a highly successful one at that.
And my favorite book was the 5-book Percy Jackson series. It's really good. You should read it.
Okay.
Okay, next up I read What Happens After Midnight by K.L. Walther. So I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly, I started it, got halfway through it, and then I finished the rest of it in June.
I remember you being really disappointed.
Terrible. Did not like it. I just felt like the main character, her reason, so like it was like a second chance, like she broke up with her boyfriend and then she got back together with him. But she kept talking about the reason why she broke up with him, and it was because she said he got too much attention from other girls.
All right.
Sorry, what?
I can't. Get out.
So yeah, I just thought like the whole idea of it was like dumb, but yeah.
It's Practice Makes Perfect by Sarah Adams. I really liked this book. It was really fast paced. It was very summery vibes. And the main character, her name is Annie. She had never been in a relationship before. She started talking to this one guy and everyone started asking her about it. And it was just fun. It's not very deep, but it was cool.
Next up on mine, I reread Happy Place. And of course, I gave it 5 stars. This is my favorite Emily Henry book, in my opinion. Because a lot of the times you can tell when a writer is good because they can actually write like side characters who have actually like personalities and they have depth to them. And she's really good at that. And that's just something I really liked in this book. And I also really liked Win. Was it Win?
Win.
Yeah. Win. I loved Win. He was so cute.
Okay, and then I read Magnolia Parks. I rated 4 stars. This is the most toxic relationship I've ever read, but the writing was so good. I read it so fast, and I bought the next book to read. It's basically like Gossip Girl, so the people, their morals are just shot, and they basically are just terrible people, but the storyline is good, you know? Another one I read that I don't have with me is That's Not My Name. I rated it 4 stars. It was cool. It's like the first mystery thriller, but I don't really know what the genre was. First one of those books I read. It kept me entertained. It was a good little summer read. So, yeah. You go.
Next up, Kingdom of Ash. So if you want to know why I read 10 less books than Tori, it's because I decided to read this book in the middle of summer. It says I finished it June 26th, but I had to do it. It was such a fun time. It was such a crazy time, such a sad time. And it was absolutely insane.
She can't say any spoilers because I'm reading it now.
I can't say anything too crazy about it, but let's just say I have a lot of opinions about a lot of people. But Aylin is my girl.
She doesn't like Aiden, but I don't care.
Y'all know. Does y'all know? Y'all know. A lot. It was a lot of information. It was a long book. So obviously, you get bored sometimes. You do. And that's just the truth of it. This is the best Sarah J. Maas series. I don't care what anybody says. Thank you. Good night.
The next book I read, probably one of my favorite books I read this year, Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. 5 stars. Immediately. I read this while I was at the beach too. Oh my gosh. It was so good. The dynamic between the 2 characters was so good. The male main character was so kind and considerate. The only thing I didn't really like was the female main character. Her name is Emma. She liked to run away from people, but it was starting to piss me off. Like,
this be nice. I'm finding it.
Starting to piss me off.
I think the reason why I didn't like her as much is because she reminded me of myself and how I just don't give anybody a chance. I'm just like, leave me alone and leave me to my life. I'll figure it out. 5 stars though. Probably will read again this summer.
Let's talk about Powerless. I gave this book 1 star. This was the worst book.
Okay, I gave it 4 stars.
Actually,
I almost puked, but let me stay focused.
I think I gave it 3 initially, but then I was like, there's no way. It's like she didn't write a story. It's like she took a bunch of tropes and put them together. I feel like she repeats sayings a lot. That really got on my nerves. I don't remember specifically what it was, but she continuously said the same things over and over.
I gave this
That's
4 stars because it definitely wasn't a 5 star, but it was really easy to read, and I liked the idea of it, and when I was reading it, I enjoyed it because it was just like Hunger Games. But I understand it's not.
It's nothing like the Hunger Games. Don't say that.
A little bit. Like the idea behind it.
Oh my gosh, I forgot to say.
Which is like all of my favorite dystopian books combined in fantasy. And she tried to make it one, which was fun to follow along, but it started to get repetitive towards the end, and then especially going into the second book, I did not like the second one at all. The next book I read, Powerful. This is a little story about a side character. It was 5 stars because I cried. And usually if I cry in a book, I'll give it 5 stars because nothing can make me cry. I read this faster than I read the first one.
I wonder why. It's shorter.
Okay.
The second book I read in Dirty Myrtle was A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. So I remember we went to the thrift store and the book was approximately $1.67 at the thrift store. I rated this 5 stars. It was actually really good, and it was like a murder mystery type of thing. But here's the thing, it also had a little bit of romance in it with Robbie.
Next book I read was How the King of Elfhame Learned to Hate Stories. And this was a fun little read. I rated it 4 stars. I liked all the illustrations in there.
What did it lose a star for?
It's just like a picture book.
So what? What does that have to do with anything?
Well, it was just fun little stories, and it wasn't a 5 star because it didn't change my life. Okay?
Alright.
Oh my gosh. Jude and Carden.
That alone should give it 5 stars. Next I read Reckless. Somehow this was worse than Powerless. Let's just say this. Traitor, tormented, destined for each other.
Here we go again.
He's basically chasing her around the desert. But nothing happens. Like, they're just in the desert the whole time doing nothing. Nothing gets done. You want to talk about a filler book. It was purely, once again, tropes. 1 star, terrible. Get out of my face.
Next book I read this in Myrtle Beach. I reread it actually. I just love Wynn and I love Harriet and I love their dynamic. I love them being with all their friends and like the stuff that they go through with their friends and with each other and the communication.
Yes.
And I love the font.
Yes.
The font is good. I rated this 3 stars, which is pretty low for me because I feel like I give books very high ratings, easily like 3 or 4.
Yeah.
I feel bad if I go lower, but I skimmed most of this, so I don't really know what happened. I mean, there was some fun, like when she almost drowned. That was interesting.
I don't even remember that.
Overall, I would not read it again. I didn't even fully read it the first time, so.
Okay, so next I read Just for the Summer. I rated this 4 stars. I really liked it. I felt like I saw myself in Emma a lot. She's got avoidant attachment style or something. Like she doesn't want to be anybody's girlfriend. She doesn't want to be tied down by anybody. He was so nice to her. Her parents are nuts, but I read this in 2 days. It was really good.
Next book I read, Fourth Wing. 4 stars. From the beginning, I was like, oh, this is going to be like a good fantasy book. And I really did enjoy learning about like the dragons and how they connected to the dragons and the little war that was going on. Until the last maybe like 50, 100 pages, it was not. They kept just like being mad at each other and doing all this stuff. And
So, next book I read, Funny Story by Emily Henry. And I really like how she writes all her characters and how her books are like romance, but they also I feel like all of them have like a deep, like they have like a depth to them, an emotional depth, and I really like that in her books. I liked all the little dates they were going on. I just thought it was like cute, like fun vibes. And then the next book I read was Fourth Wing. I gave it 3 stars because it was really good, like you said. It was basically all the same thing she said. Like, it was really good. I really liked the world building in the beginning, but at the end it just turns into all about Xaden, all about like how she's in love with him. Like, how are you in love with him? It's just like all he kept telling her was, you don't like love me. Like, listen, you don't know me, girl. You don't know me. And she didn't listen. She kept telling him, I love you, and then he like betrays her or something.
yeah.
But
Next book I read was Lovely War by Julie Berry. I love this book. I gave it 5 stars. My sister DNF'd it.
All of this is so humiliating and so embarrassing.
I felt like it was a combination of some genres. That and I annotated this book. That's how much I loved it. Like, it was very poetic, I think, the writing, which I highly enjoyed. And then I also read Funny Story. I really did like this one. I gave it 4 stars. I think I just didn't really connect to the main character as much, probably because Lexi did. And we're like different people. I just felt like she should have just done stuff or said stuff. Like, she was holding back too much, which is probably why I didn't relate to her as much. But I thought it was so cute, and when they went on all the little dates and stuff, it was very aesthetic because it was midsummer for us, and I really liked it. So yeah. Next I read Assistant to the Villain right before I went back to college. I gave it 5 stars because honestly, I just love a good storytelling, and this book was like a fairy tale. It kind of reminded me of Once Upon a Broken Heart. It was very lighthearted, but overall it was a fun read, and I enjoyed it. So I don't care what faces you're making. Rat.
that's okay. You don't. Everyone needs a.
Wow!
Everybody's entitled to go to bed.
She likes them series.
Is it my turn?
Yes.
But next I read Love on the Brain by Allie Hazelwood. It was really good. It was like a little, you know, Allie Hazelwood, the science. Always gotta be science people, and they're always doing something. They were like building helmets for NASA or something. But the girl's kind of weird. She like cried every time she saw like roadkill on the side of the road. So that was,
Oh my gosh.
that was kind of funny, but like, I still liked it. It was enjoyable. 3 stars. Yeah.
The next book I read was Summer Romance by Annabelle Monaghan? I don't know how to say her name. But I gave this book 4 stars. Thinking back, I might have given it 3. The dude, once again, just for the summer, I feel like the male main characters in those 2 books are so similar. They're so nice. I think the one thing that threw me off, though, was this girl in this book kept talking about how her house was so dirty and her job was to like help other people clean their house. And I was just like, if you don't clean your house, I'm gonna lose my mind. Like, I was just getting so mad. I was like, you got a dirty house. And she wouldn't let the dude come over to her house because it was so dirty. And I was like, yeah, that's about to make me... This book might be better for like an older person who understands like
I just remember starting
home
it and all
ownership,
she was...
having children, all that stuff. It just really wasn't for me.
Next book I read was Assistant to the Villain. This book was not my cup of tea, but I read it because I wanted to know what was going to happen next. If it doesn't make sense, I don't really like it. So that's why I can't just do like, you know, like vibes based off of vibes. I can't do it because it has to make sense to me or I'm just like, I'm mad about it. It was still like pretty interesting, so I gave that 3 stars.
Yours truly by Abby Jimenez. It was so good. She would go with him to like his events with his family and he would just be like worried about all of their opinions. And I really liked the female main character because she was very like sure of herself and very confident and just like helped him out a lot. So I think they were a good match and their chemistry was good. So I like that one a lot.
The next book I read was Checkmate by Allie Hazelwood. This was her like first book she wrote, and tell me why it was so good. I really liked this one. I rated it 4.5 stars, and it was so cute. Like
You can't do 4.5 stars.
I just did.
I did a reread of The Cruel Prince by Holly Black, and I forgot because it had been a year or 2 since I read the Cruel Prince series, so I forgot like how much character development Jude went through in this book, and it was just so fun to like knowing how much of a baddie she is by the end of the series, like watching her grow into that a little bit. True Enemies to Lovers.
Cassandra Clare Swordcatcher. So I was actually really scared to read this. I rated it 4 stars. It was really like a really interesting premise. The characters were pretty good, but at first I felt like the main character we were reading from his perspective, I felt like he didn't have any emotions. But I think it was just the writing style that did that. Towards the end, I really liked it, and I'm really excited to read the next one because I need to know what happens. But yeah, it was really good.
Next book I read was Cinnamon Bun Bookstore by Lori Gilmore. It was kind of hard for me to get through. Like, I read it fast at the beginning because I was like, oh, this will be a good vibes read. Easy to read since it was like the end of the semester. I had a lot of schoolwork to do. And it was, but I had the impression based off of the autumn leaves on the front cover that it was going to be a fall book, and it was a summer book.
Well, that's
So that was terrible because I was trying to read it in the fall. It was cute. The vibes were cute, but if it was in the summer, but it's not in the summer. So I gave it 3 stars.
The next book I read was Light Lark by Alex Astor. I rated this 2 stars. Just there are loopholes and plot holes. All of them. It was all in there. And the main character, I really did not like her. It would just, no. I was not feeling it, but it's okay. You know, it's not for everybody. It was vibes. You know, it's another one of those vibes type of books. Vibes and mood reads. Can't do it.
Well,
The next book I read was so good. I wish I would have read it in the summer though. But 5 stars immediately. The X-Files by Jessica Joyce. It was about this couple who had broken up within like a couple years, and then their best friend, they have a mutual best friend who was getting married, and they were the best man and the best woman to this friend, and the wedding was like falling apart, so they had to like get together and go to the place where they were getting married early to set up everything, and their chemistry was just so good, and you could tell that they were like meant for each other, and they had all this history that they didn't want to bring up. They just wanted to make sure the wedding was great. The first sentence on the back says, Georgia lives her life by Liz. So immediately I was like, me and this girl are...
You in Georgia.
Yeah. And the mailman character was so sweet, and he could like immediately tell anytime anything was wrong with her, and he like made her talk to him, and I was like, yes, give me that. Give me that. His name is Eli. But yeah, 5 stars. Highly recommend this book.
The last book I read in 2024 was my favorite one. So, Red Rising, which is like a science fiction dystopian book. Sorry.
Whoa.
I rated this 5 stars. I haven't read a book like this since I read like The Hunger Games, or like this book was Divergent and Hunger Games but upgraded times 100. And the main character is insane, and I really like smart, crazy main character. It just did it for me. It was so good, and I'm reading the second one as we speak. I'm definitely gonna finish it, and everybody needs to read this book, including you.
Okay. The next book I read was my lowest rating of the year, Ruthless Vows. The second book in the Divine Rival series, 2 stars. I skimmed most of this book. I wasn't interested in the plot. The 2 main characters were separated, and at that point I was just bored, and they never made it interesting for me. Like, usually I'm not the type to care if the people are separated, because I know they'll like get back together and the plot is interesting, but this plot was not interesting. And it was very dull. The second to last book I read was Apprentice to the Villain, which I gave 4 stars. I thought it was fun. It was like a continuation of this, and there was a lot going on. Like, it was never boring, and they like had little side quests to go on and little parts of the universe that we got to visit, and there was some development of the relationship, and yeah, I'm excited to see where the third book goes, because it's a fun read for me. I can do vibes if the
I would like to say, wait. I would like to point out that I actually did read this. I read like half of it. Yes, I did.
No, you didn't.
Stop!
I read about 200 pages of it, and there's 300 in it. If that means anything to you.
No.
So I would say it was purely vibes, basically.
No, it wasn't.
And it felt like when I was reading it, it felt like the writer was just coming up with stuff as we went through the story. It felt like she didn't actually have a plan, but that's just my opinion.
Okay, last book I read in 2024, Queen Charlotte, the Bridgerton spinoff about Queen Charlotte and King George. I just think their relationship is so dynamic and there's so many layers to it, and I really enjoyed watching the show, and I enjoyed the book even more because you get to see inside of both of the characters' heads, stuff you don't get to see in the show. And I really like Queen Charlotte, and King George is just so sweet. But he was just wanted to get better so he could be with his queen. And I love him so much. But yeah, thanks for watching, guys.
And that was our book reads in 2024. Thank you for listening.
And this is my first read of 2025. I am this far in. Let's go.